Howdy folks, and welcome back to Boondockery. Today I'm jumping back on that old school military surplus bandwagon. Today's video is going to be focusing on a replacement for my very heavily used and abused jungle boots. Now, jungle boots as we know them today have been around for a very long time. The M1966 jungle boot is prolific. It has an iconic feel to it, and when people see this M1966 jungle boot, they immediately think of the Vietnam War. Now, believe it or not, this actually had a predecessor that led to the design and development of the M1966. And in the 1950s, recognizing the threat that was facing the world and focusing on Southeast Asia, the United States military and Department of Defense was training special forces and advisors on the island of Okinawa. And while they were there, they were testing out a new canvas upper jungle boot. And it was, it was nicknamed the Okinawa boot. And it was very similar to this, a very different sole originally than the Panama sole. But at the top, it retained a leather band upper with a double buckle up on top. Very reminiscent to combat boots in World War II. I actually had the opportunity to see an original pair of Okinawa boots many years ago. H. David Wright was the art director for the documentaries that I did for the History Channel, or I participated in the History Channel documentaries. And one day he showed up to filming, and he had these boots on that were magnificent. They were all brown leather except the canvas upper. And I said, "Where did you get those boots? Those are fantastic." And he says, I got these when I was training to go to Nam. And so he was actually on Okinawa at some point training, and he was issued these boots, and he still had them. And I guess for the time period, it was probably the same amount of time and duration that I've had my jungle boots. But looking at the design, they were awesome. And the idea of having brown leather with that olive drab canvas upper, I think is brilliant. And I would kind of like to see my version of a jungle boot with all brown leather. Now, the older I get, the more nostalgic I get. And as you can probably tell through a lot of my videos, but when I pulled out my old jungle boots and pulled them on, I was very, very sad to see that my feet had grown quite a bit. Now, you probably can't see it on this super well worn out sole, but these were actually size 8.5. With military boots, if you're actually ordering real military boots like these old school ones, you need to go one full size down for the size. So at the time I was wearing 9.5, and so now I wear a size 10.5. And I had contemplated getting some boot stretchers and stretching these out. Well, realistically, if it's a half size off, you might actually be able to pull it off. However, being a full size, I thought that might be pushing it. So I actually started shopping around for replacements for these jungle boots. Now, there are a lot of manufacturers out there that are producing jungle boots today. A lot of them are not well made. And if you are going to go through the pain and time to break in a pair of boots. And yes, you do need to break these in. Just because they're canvas upper, it may speed up the break-in time a little bit, but you still have to break all this stuff in. You want to get a good pair of boots. You want to get something that's going to last well after you break them in. So with all the different companies that I looked at, the one I decided to go with is McRae Footwear. And they make a jungle boot exactly the same way, on exactly the same equipment, in exactly the same factory that they did in the 1960s. Now, real quick disclaimer before we go any further. McRae Footwear has no idea I'm doing this video. They did not supply anything whatsoever. They didn't supply boots or anything else. I actually ordered these from Gall's out of Kentucky, and they had them on sale, so that's who I decided to go with. So I, in no way, shape, or form, have anything to do with McRae Footwear. I get nothing from it, and I am not doing this as a paid promotion for their company or their footwear. Just wanted to throw that out there. Now, just in case someone out there doesn't know about jungle boots and you happen to be watching this video, the jungle boot was developed to be able to deal with the extreme humidity and moisture that would be encountered in Southeast Asia. Now, during World War II, the Japanese found out the hard way, because a lot of their equipment that they took to all these different islands, including Okinawa, they realized that their equipment, their leather pouches, their leather straps, their leather boots were rotting off their feet. And so, the idea of replacing all of that type of stuff with canvas is what they wound up doing. Made a lot of sense, and it worked very well. So that's what they decided to go with the jungle boots. Now, the jungle boots that were first being issued, and really were being issued throughout most of the Vietnam War, did not have the famous Panama sole. They had something looked more like a regular work boot sole, and they were made by Vibram, and it collected a lot of mud, and it held on to that mud. And so at later point, actually in Panama, this new sole was developed and gradually started replacing the original Vibram soles. Now, not only do you have a canvas upper which dries out much faster and can hold up to all the rigors of extreme heat and moisture, they also have drain holes, drain vents in the insole, so as you're walking, you're actually pumping water out of the boot. And the way that worked is that they had, I don't even know if I still have, oh, I do. I still have the original insoles in these puppies. It's a mesh insole, which allows air to get in there. So when you are walking, you're also creating like a pump action to force that water out of that insole and out of these vent holes. And the whole design worked very, very well. And that's the reason the United States military continued to use them in so many different ways, well past the end of the Vietnam War. Now, one very important part of a jungle boot, which came in very, very handy in Vietnam, was the addition of a steel shank that went the length of the sole of the boot. And it's actually trapped between the sole and the inner portion of the boot. So it's actually contoured, so it actually provides arch support, but it provided very, very necessary protection from things like punji sticks. I had to throw that in there because I know, had I forgotten to add that, someone would have been saying, hey, John, you know what you're talking about. You need to tell him about the steel shank for the punji stick. So, there you have it. I provided information about the steel shank for protection against punji sticks. Here they are, folks, my glorious replacements for my venerable, tried and true jungle boots I wore when I was in the Army. Just look at them. They're glorious. Even though these boots look very similar to my originals, they are very different indeed. These actually are the Generation 2 hot weather boot, and it retains all the awesome things that my original boots did. However, they've gone a little step further. Now, McRae still makes a boot virtually identical to this, but the only difference really between my originals and the actual Generation 1 that they have is they have speed lace eyelets that go from about 1/3 up all the way to the top, just like these do. However, these are the Gen 2. These, for old feet, are painful. For like long hikes in the woods, patrolling, whatever. Yeah, for old feet, it's gonna hurt. These, however, have a lot of features that make happy feet out of old feet. Now, just like the originals, they're both 8 inches. The bottoms are a little bit different as well. The soles are just a little bit different, just a tiny little bit. It's still a Panama-esque sole. It still retains the shank that's in the sole. However, unlike the originals that had very, very, and I mean very little cushioning and padding, this is you can definitely tell the difference if you take this insole out and wear it without an insole. It's amazing how something so thin can make a huge difference. However, the insole that is in this, I'm not going to take it out because it's in there the way it's supposed to be. However, there is a comfort insole in here that's like walking on clouds, and it is removable and it is replaceable. But I personally don't want to remove it unless I absolutely have to in order to replace it. As you can see, the profile is just a little bit different. I think that the sole is maybe a little bit thicker. Now granted, these are really worn down from what they were when I first got them. But if memory serves, these are just a little bit thicker, so that's a good thing. They're made by Vibram, so they're going to be super quality. But I'll be able to wear these for a longer period of time before they wear to the point that my originals did. Now they still retain the brass vents down here, and I do not have any clue. I've not read anything, any reviews about these. I think these are relatively new, so they haven't been on the market for a real long time, I don't believe. But I think with the insole that's in this now, it would probably not be able to pump the water out like the original ones would, but I don't know that for certain. There's a possibility that it could even do a better job, but I don't know. All of the other features, the reinforced webbing that's on the side, it's all the same. And for all intents and purposes, at a glance, you would not think twice that these were not the original Jungle Boot designs. I wore them around the house the other day, as soon as I got them, and I wore them around the house that evening, and they feel absolutely fantastic. Now the laces that come with these, they're basic boot laces. They're perfectly fine. However, just like I always did with my jungle boots, is I replaced the regular black laces with 550 cord. And this 550 cord is the most legit because it actually came off of a military parachute. I'm going to go ahead and replace these laces and put them on. And here they are. And like I said, they really feel great. Now, I'm going to have to wear them for a little while, break them in. And you know, every little chance I get, I'm going to be taking them out to the woods. And I'm going to get blisters. I know that. I remember when I got out of the Army, and I wasn't wearing combat boots anymore. I had calluses from here to here on my shin, on the top of my feet, in addition to other calluses wherever. But I remember as they gradually got to where they were flaking off like scabs. But I probably won't be wearing these enough to get those calluses anymore, but I am going to be wearing them enough to get them broken in and enjoy them in the woods. Now I'm getting pretty close to the time of the year to where I'm not going to be needing jungle boots, but I would say I probably have at least another good month and a half before it starts getting too cold. And I'm really looking forward to wearing these as much as I possibly can. Couple more items, one of which you might be curious, why do I replace my boot laces with 550 cord? Well, there's a few reasons for that. One of which, 550 cord is larger in diameter, and the very thin, black, stretchy boot laces, when I start to pull them tight, well, they stretch and they slide around a good bit. 550 cord, because of the diameter, when I pull them tight, they pretty much lock themselves into position and they aren't going to wiggle out or slide out. There's not as much stretch with the 550 cord as there is with the boot laces. Survival. You've probably seen multiple times where people have had to use their boot laces for one survival item or another. Well, 550 cord is much more versatile for any survival situation than a pair of thin black boot laces. So I have survival items on my boots. And another thing, they just flat out look cool. I think they look a whole lot better than the black boot laces. But those are the reasons why I like to replace my boot laces with 550 cord. Now, when I first received my boots, I went by the recommendations from McRae's website, because I knew that military boots usually go one full size down in order to, you know, have a proper fit. Well, on the Gen 2 hot weather boot, it says true to size. Well, I ordered true to size with what I wear in all of my other footwear, which is 10.5. And when I got them, you know, the heel space was okay, the toe space was okay, the width was okay, but on the top of my foot, there was a little too much space between the outsole and the top of my foot. So I went ahead, and even though I ordered them from Galls, I went ahead and contacted customer service at McRae and explained the situation. And Robert, which was extremely helpful, recommended that if that were the case, he would recommend going a half size down, which I did, and they fit perfect. They fit exactly the way they're supposed to, and it gives me that little bit of leeway when they do start to stretch, when they're breaking in and things like that, you know, they're going to fit perfectly and conform to my feet, just like my original jungle boots did. So customer service from McRae is top notch. Galls, the company that I ordered my boots from, I have ordered many things from them in the past. I've never had a need to contact customer service from Galls because I got exactly what I ordered, exactly, you know, and the same condition, and the description of the product was exactly what I received, so there was no problems there, and I received them very, very quickly. I think from the time that I ordered them, there was probably 3 days total. There was just maybe 1 day in between the two. Ordered them 1 day, 3 days later I received them. And so Galls, you know, shipping their products, everything that they do top notch as well. So I would recommend checking out both McRae's website and also Galls, because with McRae's, they have all kinds of different footwear, a plethora of military type footwear that is actually, you know, issued by the military, as well as you know, tactical boots, things like that, and a bunch of others too. So if you have an inkling that you might want to get a pair of these boots, I will tell you they are spendy, and that's the reason I held off for as long as I did after I discovered them. And then when I saw Galls had them on sale, that was enough of a discount, which was a significant discount for me to go ahead and drop the coin on them when I did. And I'm glad I did. Like I said, if you're going to go through the time and the pain of breaking a pair of boots in, you want a good quality pair of boots. And the very affordable jungle boots that are out there, they will fail you. And so it's worth it in the long term to go ahead and spend a little bit more in order to get a much higher quality. And also, I'm certain that if you have issues with the boots after the first month or so that, you know, you're wearing them, if you were to contact either Galls or McRae, they would probably be able to help you out because I'm just that impressed with those two companies. Well, folks, there you have it. My new pair of jungle boots on their first day in the woods, and probably a lot of blisters to come, but I'm very, very pleased with them, and I can't wait to finally have them broke in, and by next summer they're going to be put to use quite a lot. Now, I would highly recommend McRae Footwear. I would highly recommend Galls for numerous reasons, for numerous types of things. I'll put the links to their companies in the description box below, and you can check those things out. And I will be doing an update video on these once I do have them broke in and I have a good many miles under them, and we'll let you know how they're holding up, what the comfort levels like, what any challenges I had with the break-in period or anything else, and I'll let you know that probably towards spring, if not the middle of summer. Well, folks, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.